Today we explore why sustainability matters. It goes beyond just environmentally friendly. It's about embracing practices that drive long-term success, meet stakeholder expectations, and create positive social impact. Sustainability practices help protect our environment while ensuring the viability of businesses. By minimising negative impacts, conserving resources, and reducing costs, companies can thrive in a changing landscape and contribute to a healthier planet. In this podcast, we speak with Steve Broadbent, Ensystex Regional Director Australia, Southeast Asia, South Africa, and Gulf region.
I think with Ensystex, it's little steps that can make a difference. It's very hard for us to make enormous steps. We are in the business of selling insecticides and rodenticides. Pests are serious problems that we need to protect people from, especially those of a public health nature. But there are many little ways in which we can do it. And those are the things that we're looking at, both in terms of supporting the pest control industry through the Sustainability Award that we've sponsored with the AEPMA, through our commitment to Australian Wildlife Conservancy, and through things with packaging and with a number of initiatives through our office complex, which is a very green office building. Lights go on automatically, go off automatically, and many implementations just to save greenhouse gases. And then the introduction of products such as our Green Initiative products in terms of Vector with the LED lighting, where we save 50% on the energy costs of a normal UVA fly trap. Our lamps last for 3 years, whereas fluorescent lamps last for just 1 year. So straight away, we've saved a third in waste. Then on top of that, the LED lamps don't use any glass in them, so there's no lead. They don't use mercury and other toxic components like that are used in fluorescent lamps, and that's our big push to get those into the market. In the rodent market, we have new products in development that are not second-generation anticoagulant rodenticides, and then we have the Rodent Digital, which allows fewer visits, which saves servicing costs, saves fuel costs, and things like that. I mean, my first degree was in ecology. I've always been heavily involved with wildlife causes in particular, and AWC especially. So it's very much at my heart. And so it extends also into, we're working on green initiatives for pest control. We have our EcoThor Active Nature range of products, which are using plant-derived components rather than synthetic components. This moves us away from broad spectrum pesticides in the environment. We've done things with the Green Tag accreditation for Trithor, so that we've got that product qualified for its reduction in greenhouse gases and for its sustainability in the environment. And there's no other termite management product that has a Green Tag rating A, which is an independent assessment. We've moved many of our plastics, where we're talking of dust, and we can do so. We've moved them to cardboard packaging, which is recyclable, of course. We use recycled cardboard whenever we're using packaging. We're in the process of assessing the lifetime carbon emission schedules of our products for relation to greenhouse gas emissions. We are looking for other options to replace liquid packaging, but that's much more difficult to get away from the plastics. So wherever we can, we're thinking of seeking greener solutions. And later this year, we'll be launching our Entrap product, which is based on, it's an extract of pine trees. It's totally non-toxic to anything other than the target insects, because it doesn't work as a poison. It works by literally entrapping the insect. When you spray the insect, We get a coating over the insect. You picture it as though you're putting a plastic coating over the insect, except it's not. It's a cellulose coating that immobilizes the insect and leads to the insect's death. And this is done with it's a cellulose-based active component. All the components in the product are plant derived. Are approved for use in food handling establishments. And in fact, it's the actual active component is the same that's used to coat pharmaceuticals and nutraceuticals. When you get a capsule to take, they look like they got plastic on the outside. Of course, it's not plastic, it's cellulose. And that's exactly what we're using to entrap and kill the insects. This is very interesting as to where this is headed. It's very powerful in Europe. Europe's got different driver forces where the use of second generation anticoagulant rodenticides is very much frowned on, particularly in northern European areas. This has opened up the opportunity for people to be controlling rodents without the use of rodenticides at all, just by using trapping. And this then lends itself very naturally to digital pest controls. Has the trap gone off? Yes or no? You don't need to service the trap until you know it's gone off. You've got that data there, and it's been shown that you can get on top of pest control problems sooner or before they arise, because if you're looking at a normal situation, you go there monthly or maybe 3 monthly even. So it's not until you do a visit or you get a call from your client that you know there's a problem, and by then the problem might be quite exacerbated. Whereas if we have a digital management system, as soon as we catch one rodent in a trap, we've got a message and we can be on top of it. So it allows for earlier intervention. It means that a premises is monitored literally 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we can control those messages when they come out so they don't disturb our nighttime sleep. We get a message at 8 a.m. in the morning or whatever time we set it to be as to which trap's gone off in which factory. This means that we don't necessarily have to visit the premises as frequently, which of course leads to less motor vehicle costs, less fuel usage, yet allowing for increased efficacy within the pest control programs. But certainly there it was driven by the legislation, because the costs of this sort of technology are relatively high at the moment. But that's no different to any technology. If we look at, video technology, when it first came out with beta cameras were so expensive. Now everybody has video in their mobile phone, and of a much higher standard. So there certainly is going to be, it's likely there's going to need to be some sort of drive from government, and government is reviewing the use of second generation anticoagulant rodenticides. But it's going to lead to innovations both on the digital side, and as I mentioned earlier, we're looking at second generation anticoagulant rodenticide actives, including one which is quite specific to rats only, which gives some very interesting opportunities. With the Vector range, we can get real-time counts on fly trapping. And again, this is perhaps not broadly going to be important, but certainly as standards of pest control or demands of the community for less evidence of pests, then it's going to become a driver in itself. But certainly when we're talking high-end food factories, and I've been to some of these food factories, they don't want to see one fly in their premises. So in those sorts of situations, again, we've got that real-time monitoring, and we can set the limits. We don't have to say, look, every time there's a fly caught, let me know. But we can tell the system, once you've caught 10 flies, let me know. So we can get an early warning as to what's going on. We don't have to wait until we go back 3 months' time to change the glue board. We can have a tracking of what's going on and be able to intervene much sooner and stop problems developing. They're going to become increasingly important. We've certainly seen governments say that any government buildings should be meeting these environmental standards that the green tag provides. We have been let down by the New South Wales government in this area where they've made that a specification, but not for termite products. Yet here we have Trithor, which is a green tag rated product. But certainly what we're seeing is builders and architects. Price has always been the driver in that industry, and price will always be a strong driver. But we are seeing this increasing consumer concerns about a green economy. And I think with that, they are going to put the pressure on the builders. And so that the builders can say, yes, this is a green rated house, and Trithor is being used, which has these independent green ratings, and it also has the independently rated platinum health rating through the Green Tag program. These are going to become important drivers for the building industry in the future. I guess this is a very personal one for me. When we looked at corporate social responsibility program, we did look at a range of programs, and we used an independent person to do some scoping, and decided that this sort of wildlife field was important. And that's when I took over, because I've been involved with Australian Wildlife Conservancy as an organisation almost since its inception. And it's now one of the world's largest conservation organizations. It's delivering conservation across, it's just quite unbelievable, 12.9 million hectares in some of the most iconic regions of Australia. And to put that into some context, they're the second largest manager of land in Australia outside of the government. And indeed, now many of they're doing projects with the national parks. They've got 2 or 3 initiatives in place with New South Wales national parks, where they're managing the national parks. Because the big difference that AWC does is they're not managing these areas for people, like is often the case with national parks, where we're trying to have people out in the environment. They're managing them for wildlife first, and that's what really matters, because we're going to lose these species. And it can always be very said, well, do we need that particular species of frog? And the answer is we don't know. Each species has its role within an ecosystem, and just changing 1 or 2 species in an ecosystem can make significant damage and change to that ecosystem. The most classic study, of course, was in America, where in the Yellowstone National Park, when the wolf was eradicated within that national park, the whole biome of the park changed. We saw the moose and the elk coming down from the mountains into the riparian zones. They started damaging the riparian zone, moving the smaller deer out of those zones. They started impacting on the beaver populations, and the whole ecosystem of the park changed. And then when the wolf was reintroduced, we saw it change back to how it had always been. So it's vital that we protect these species. And it's not just for us, it's for our children, it's our children's children. It's a trite saying, but it's for the health of the planet. We just don't know how important this can be. And I mean, for me, I wouldn't be alive if I couldn't go out in these places. I don't have to see a Tasmanian devil, but I do need to know they're there. Obviously, we sponsor AWC. We have a brochure that promotes AWC. We'd like to think that our clients hand that brochure out, because that then becomes publicity for AWC and what it stands for. But we have been a very significant donor over the years. I know our support is valued by AWC, and I'm not sure the exact amount we've provided now, but it's well over $500,000 that we've provided to the support of conservation in Australia. I think that really comes back to what I said at the start of our discussion here, is little steps count. It doesn't matter. There's sort of a classic example of a beach. There's all those grains of sand on a beach, but they start as 1 grain, and it's only when they all get together. So all the little things that we do count. It may not be anything big, but if there's 10 people doing it, it's that much bigger, and so on. So just every little thing we can do counts and matters. And if we don't start doing something now, who knows where the world could turn up with the sort of fears that we have with the rise in global temperatures, which is a reality. I've observed it in my time. If I think back to when I lived in a valley in New South Wales, Cedar Brush Creek, when I first moved there, during winter, let's say 90 days of winter, 80 days, I would have a deep frost, which because of the mountains wouldn't go till about 10. 8 years later, by the time I'm leaving, we were having 10 days of frost. These changes are real. We see them in mountain areas where I've been, where the peaks are not snow covered in summer like they used to be, and in winter the snow lines are higher. I think the key thing here is to accept that green options may not be as efficacious as a neurotoxin, but they can deliver good results. But it does require a little bit more time, a little bit more care, and the products themselves are a little bit more expensive. So I think you've got to accept that customers have to demand a greener option, but they have to be prepared to accept higher costs. You can't have a reality is we're not going to have greener options and lower costs. And we have to be prepared for that, and we have to be realistic. As I say, my whole background is I care about the planet, and I care about wildlife, and it's important that we become more sustainable in our approach. And I think the main reason we sponsored that award was both our belief and my belief in this. And it's an award that will hopefully recognize leadership in this field, provide leadership that people can look up to, and then encourage others to do the same. And if people are seen to be growing their business and being green, I think it's a self-sustaining effect within the whole industry, and we can move on to being, as the association says, Australian environmental pest managers.